"Your Honor, I object." This iconic line is more than just dialogue. It is the symbol of a golden age in American television. Premiering in 1957 and running for an impressive 9 seasons, Perry Mason transformed tense courtroom battles into a weekly ritual for millions of viewers. Raymond Burr, in the role of the brilliant defense attorney who almost never lost, formed an unstoppable trio alongside his loyal secretary Della Street and private investigator Paul Drake. But behind the shocking courtroom confessions and dramatic last-minute reversals lies a history filled with strange and fascinating stories. From near-miscasting decisions to its surprising influence on even the Supreme Court of the United States, here are 15 facts about Perry Mason that you may have forgotten. 1. Raymond Burr, from killer roles to the icon of justice. Before leaving an indelible mark on audiences as the embodiment of integrity and justice, Raymond Burr was widely recognized in Hollywood as a go-to face for ruthless villains. With his imposing physique and piercing gaze, he frequently portrayed murderers and criminals, most notably the wife-killing antagonist in Rear Window, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. Because of this background, producers initially considered him only for the role of Hamilton Berger, the ill-fated prosecutor who would repeatedly face defeat in court. However, producer Gail Patrick saw something deeper beneath his rugged exterior. She issued a life-changing challenge. Burr could audition for the lead role if he managed to lose 60 pounds, 27 kilograms. Determined not to miss his chance, Burr committed himself to an intense and disciplined regimen of dieting and exercise. When he returned, transformed into a more refined and commanding presence, the creator of the original stories, Earl Stanley Gardner, was completely convinced. Rising from his seat during the screen test, Gardner pointed at the screen and declared with certainty, "That is the Perry Mason I imagined." This transformation did not merely redefine Burr's career. It helped create one of the greatest lawyer characters in the history of television. 2. Perry Mason, rare defeats that shook America. In the minds of millions, Perry Mason is an almost invincible god of justice, capable of turning even the most hopeless cases into triumphant victories. Yet in reality, the legendary attorney did suffer defeat on 3 rare occasions: the case of the terrified typist, the case of the witless witness, and most notably, the case of the deadly verdict. In the most controversial of these episodes, the case of the deadly verdict, events escalated to a shocking extreme. Mason's client was sentenced to death. The reaction from the American public was immediate and intense. Viewers were outraged. They could not accept that a symbol of truth and justice could fall in a courtroom. The backlash became so overwhelming that CBS reportedly issued an unofficial directive: Perry Mason must never lose again. However, upon closer examination, even these defeats can be seen as delayed victories. Hamilton Berger, the prosecutor, often enjoyed his triumph for only a brief moment, sometimes no more than 10 minutes, before Mason would uncover decisive evidence or expose the true culprit in the final act, completely overturning the jury's verdict. 3. Raymond Burr, a 4-decade journey with one soul. The bond between Raymond Burr and Perry Mason was far more than a professional role. It was a lifelong commitment. After the original series ended, Burr made a remarkable return, starring in 26 television films centered on the character between 1985 and 1993. Even as he entered his later years, well into his 60s and 70s, with declining health and a heavier physique, Burr never considered abandoning the role that had defined his life. In his final years, despite physical limitations that often required him to rely on a cane or lean on furniture during filming, he continued to wear the elegant suits of a courtroom attorney, maintaining his dignified presence and powerful voice before the bench. This extraordinary dedication allowed him to achieve a rare milestone in entertainment history, portraying the same character across 4 decades. For Raymond Burr, Perry Mason was never just a job. It was a mission to bring hope and a sense of justice to audiences, a mission he carried faithfully until the very end of his career. 4. Perry Mason, the foundation that defined modern crime television. If modern legal dramas such as Law and Order, The Practice, or Matlock are towering skyscrapers, then Perry Mason is the solid cornerstone upon which they were built. At a time when most television programming was still in its infancy, Perry Mason sparked a quiet revolution by becoming one of the first Hollywood series to be filmed in advance rather than broadcast live, a risky format that had previously dominated the industry. The show also established the now standard 60-minute episode structure, crafting a perfectly balanced narrative arc, from the unfolding of a crime to the climactic, high-stakes courtroom confrontation. The confidence of CBS was reflected in its extraordinary budget, $100,000 per episode, equivalent to over $1.1 million today. It was a bold, high-stakes gamble on a legal drama format that had never been fully tested. Yet that gamble paid off spectacularly. The series achieved not only commercial success, but also became a blueprint for future generations of crime and legal storytelling. Every time you see a lawyer deliver a last-minute reversal in court on screen, you are witnessing the enduring legacy of Perry Mason. 5. A relay of legends. When even Hollywood icons stepped in. In 1962, a small earthquake shook the production when Raymond Burr, the show's central star, was suddenly hospitalized for emergency surgery. Facing the relentless pressure of weekly broadcasting, the production team made an unprecedented decision. Instead of pausing the series, they orchestrated a remarkable relay by inviting some of the greatest legends of Hollywood's golden age to temporarily take over the courtroom. Renowned stars such as Bette Davis and Walter Pidgeon stepped in as guest attorneys, creating a series of unique and compelling episodes that captivated audiences. To maintain continuity and keep the audience emotionally connected, the production team went to extraordinary lengths. Cameras and sound equipment were brought directly into Burr's hospital room, where scenes were staged with Perry Mason conducting legal discussions over the telephone from his bed. This unwavering determination not only allowed the series to maintain its dominance on television despite adversity, but also reflected the immense respect that Hollywood's biggest stars held for Burr and the irreplaceable stature of Perry Mason in the hearts of the American public. 6. Perry Mason and the rejection of romantic scandal. Few people realize that the brilliant defense attorney nearly became the centerpiece of a melodramatic daytime soap opera. Initially, CBS planned to develop The Edge of Night as a daytime counterpart to Perry Mason. However, a fierce creative conflict quickly emerged when the network insisted that the main character must have a romantic storyline, complete with love interests and emotionally charged relationships designed to female audiences. Faced with this demand, the creator of the original stories, Earl Stanley Gardner, responded with unwavering resolve. He withdrew from the project and firmly declared a principle that would define the character forever. Perry Mason has no time for romance. He exists only to solve cases and win them. Ultimately, the project was forced to change its main character and continued for 28 years under a different identity, while the true Perry Mason confidently claimed its place in primetime television. Gardner's steadfast vision proved a timeless truth. The appeal of pure intellect and justice can be far more powerful than any romantic subplot. It is precisely this integrity that allowed Perry Mason to stand alone as a dignified and enduring icon on screen. 7. Perry Mason, when television became a source of judicial inspiration. In 1960, Perry Mason reached a historic milestone by becoming the first television series ever to receive the prestigious Silver Gavel Award from the American Bar Association. This was a rare honor for an entertainment program, as Perry Mason was far more than a fictional drama. It established an entirely new standard for the image of a lawyer: intellectually sharp, morally upright, and unwavering in the pursuit of truth. The influence of the series extended far beyond the screen. It became a guiding light that inspired thousands of young people to pursue careers in law. One of the most remarkable examples is Sonia Sotomayor, Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States. She once shared a fascinating insight. It was not Perry Mason himself, but rather the sharp, principled arguments of prosecutor Hamilton Berger that ignited her passion for justice. From black and white television screens, Perry Mason transcended fiction and entered real life, helping to shape some of the greatest legal minds in the nation. It turned the courtroom drama into a powerful classroom of ethics, responsibility, and truth for an entire generation. 8. Paul Drake Jr. and an unexpected family bond. When Perry Mason returned in the 1980s, fans were thrilled by the introduction of Paul Drake Jr., the son of the late, brilliant Detective Paul Drake. The role was played by actor William Catt. Behind the scenes, however, lay a heartwarming family connection. William Catt is the real-life son of Barbara Hale, who famously portrayed the loyal Secretary Delastrete for decades. This casting created a uniquely touching blend of fiction and reality. On screen, Delastrete was guiding and working alongside the son of a trusted former colleague. Off-screen, audiences could sense something deeper in every glance and gesture, a genuine bond, and the quiet pride of a mother watching her son carry forward a legacy. William Catt's presence was more than just a casting choice. It was a tribute to continuity, heritage, and respect for the past. It transformed the Perry Mason set into something more than a workplace. It became a true family, where art and real-life affection intertwined seamlessly. 9. Perry Mason, a name born from childhood memory to an immortal brand. Few would imagine that the powerful name of one of the most legendary lawyers in television history was not a spontaneous invention, but rather rooted in the childhood memories of Earl Stanley Gardner. As a young boy, Gardner was an avid reader of the popular magazine The Youth's Companion. The publication was owned by a company named Perry Mason and Company, a name that quietly imprinted itself in his mind for decades. When the time came to create his courtroom hero, Gardner chose to revive that name, not merely out of familiarity, but because it carried a remarkable resonance. Perry Mason sounded strong, trustworthy, and perfectly balanced, qualities essential for a defense attorney who must stand firm amid the storm of accusations to defend truth and justice. From a simple line on the cover of a children's magazine, the name was reborn through Gardner's imagination into a symbol of authority and integrity. It evolved from a fleeting childhood memory into an enduring cultural icon, one that continues to command respect and admiration from audiences around the world. 10. The Exodus from Hollywood. When Perry Mason nearly became a playboy. Before becoming an enduring icon on the small screen, Perry Mason had a turbulent and deeply troubling beginning at Warner Brothers, appearing in 6 film projects during the 1930s. For creator Earl Stanley Gardner, however, this period was nothing short of a nightmare, one he wished he could erase entirely. In those early adaptations, filmmakers drastically altered the character, transforming the principled attorney into a witty playboy who flirted with women and was even written into a romantic relationship culminating in marriage with his secretary, Delastrete. This portrayal stood in stark contrast to Gardner's original vision of a disciplined and morally grounded legal mind. This perceived betrayal became a hard-earned lesson for Gardner. When he later partnered with CBS to develop the television series, he established one non-negotiable condition: complete creative control over the script. Gardner would rather abandon the project altogether than allow his character to be distorted again. Thanks to that unwavering stance, audiences were given the composed, razor-sharp, and justice-driven Perry Mason we know today, rather than a shallow, romanticized figure on the silver screen. 11. The Night of the Emmys, the peak of a legal empire. The year 1959 entered television history as a night of miracles for the cast and crew of Perry Mason. At the prestigious Emmy Awards, the series achieved a remarkable double triumph. Both Raymond Burr and Barbara Hale took home awards for Outstanding Lead Actor and Outstanding Supporting Actress, respectively. This dual victory was more than recognition of exceptional performances. It was a powerful affirmation of the show's superior artistic quality within the legal drama genre. The series' appeal grew into an unprecedented cultural phenomenon. Over the course of its 9-season run, Perry Mason maintained its status as the undisputed king of courtroom dramas, drawing more than 30 million loyal viewers each week. For many Americans at the time, sitting down in front of the television every Saturday night became a near-sacred ritual. They did not simply watch for entertainment. They watched to witness justice being served. Each episode became a national event, one that no competing program could hope to rival. 12. The art of tight budgeting behind the verdicts. Despite being hailed as the king of courtroom dramas, there is a surprising truth behind many of the intense legal confrontations in Perry Mason. Most of them were not full trials, but rather preliminary hearings. Behind this creative decision lay a highly practical economic calculation, minimizing production costs without sacrificing dramatic impact. In a real trial, the presence of a full jury, typically consisting of 12 members, is required. Hiring 12 additional actors, outfitting them with costumes, and paying them consistently over 9 seasons would have imposed a massive financial burden. By focusing instead on preliminary hearings, where a judge simply determines whether there is sufficient evidence to proceed to trial, the production team was able to significantly reduce staffing costs while preserving the tension and intensity of courtroom drama. Thanks to this clever approach, audiences still felt the full weight of justice unfolding on screen, while producers managed to keep the budget under control, freeing up resources to invest in stronger scripts and more compelling storytelling. 13. The Case of the Twice-Told Twist, a late splash of color for an empire. For nearly a decade of dominance, Perry Mason had been firmly etched in the minds of audiences through its dignified and timeless black and white aesthetic. Yet among its 271 episodes, there exists a single, dazzling outlier, The Case of the Twice-Told Twist from Season 9. This was not a random creative deviation, but a calculated experiment orchestrated by CBS to test whether the series could successfully transition into the era of color television, and to evaluate the possibility of renewing it for a 10th season. At the time, the episode delivered a genuine visual shock to viewers. For the first time, the courtroom world of Perry Mason was brought to life in vivid hues, from rich crimson interiors to striking pink tablecloths, transforming its familiar setting into something almost surreal. Yet despite the impressive use of lighting and color, this magic proved insufficient to save a legend nearing its conclusion. The show was canceled shortly thereafter, turning this lone color episode into a rare and luxurious artifact, a reminder that even when dressed in modern visual splendor, the true power of Perry Mason lay in its enduring moral core. 14. Raymond Burr and a Noble Act of Loyalty. Behind the stern exterior of Perry Mason was a man of remarkable compassion and loyalty. When veteran actor Ray Collins, who portrayed Lieutenant Arthur Track, began to suffer from severe health decline due to emphysema and memory loss, he was forced to step away from the series. Rather than allowing his colleague to quietly fade from the project, Raymond Burr used his influence to make a firm and compassionate demand. Collins' name must remain in the opening credits for a year and a half, even though he was no longer able to appear on screen. This gesture was more than a tribute. It was a carefully considered act of support. Keeping Collins officially credited ensured that he could retain valuable health insurance and receive financial compensation necessary for his expensive medical care. More importantly, it allowed the aging actor to feel that he was still part of the Perry Mason family, preserving his dignity and offering emotional comfort during his final years before his passing in 1965. This story stands as a powerful reminder that, at times, the bonds of humanity in Hollywood can shine even brighter than its most glittering awards. 15. The Perry Mason Syndrome. When television challenged the justice system. Perhaps the most striking testament to the power of television is what experts have come to call the Perry Mason Syndrome. Perry Mason was so compelling in its portrayal of courtroom drama that it fundamentally reshaped public expectations of justice. For decades, jurors entering real American courtrooms often carried with them a deeply ingrained belief that every case should culminate in a dramatic last-minute twist, where the true culprit breaks down and confesses on the witness stand under the pressure of a brilliant defense attorney. This perception created genuine challenges for the judicial system. Judges were repeatedly forced to remind juries, across more than 250 documented cases, with a firm and sobering message. This is not a Perry Mason episode. They had to clarify that real-life justice is a meticulous, methodical process built on evidence and procedure, not a theatrical stage for emotional confessions and dramatic revelations. The fact that a television series could compel judges to address its influence in formal legal instructions elevated Perry Mason beyond mere entertainment. It became a cultural force capable of shaping how an entire nation understands the law. Conclusion: the enduring legacy of a monument to justice. More than 60 years after its first episode aired, the shadow of Perry Mason still looms large, serving as a guiding light for every modern legal drama that followed. The series transcended the boundaries of entertainment to become a moral benchmark of dedication, courage, and the unshakable power of truth. Perry Mason is not merely a lawyer on screen. He is a symbol of the enduring belief that justice can prevail if one has the resolve to pursue it relentlessly. If the yellow brick road led Dorothy Gale to the magical land of Oz, then the sharp arguments and composed authority of Perry Mason guided an entire generation toward faith in the fairness of the law. His legacy does not reside solely in old black and white frames. It lives on in the minds of lawyers and judges who were once children, captivated by the glow of a television screen. Perry Mason taught us a timeless truth. In a world filled with uncertainty, truth remains the one cause worth fighting for, until the very end.